The Valkyrie scout ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their sleek obsidian hulls absorbing, rather than reflecting, the distant sunlight. Commander Ta-1 studied the blue planet through the fleet's long-range sensors and nodded to himself. Life-bearing world. Moderate technology. Abundant resources, he noted dispassionately in his report. Recommends standard acquisition protocol. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Jun, scrolled through the preliminary data. Their defenses appear primitive, mostly atmospheric. No significant orbital infrastructure. Perfect, Ta-1 replied. Prepare the diplomatic transmission. Give them our standard terms. The Valkyrie ships maintained their position just beyond Mars orbit. This was routine for them. They had done this hundreds of times across dozens of star systems. Find a developing world, assess its resources, issue demands, and begin harvesting. Resistance was rare once a species understood the power of the Valkyrie. Ta-1 stood on the command deck of his ship, the Night Shadow. The vessel was over 3 kilometers long, a masterpiece of Valkyrie engineering that had participated in 17 planetary acquisitions. The commander felt a sense of pride as he watched his crew work with practiced efficiency. This would be another simple operation. Message prepared, Commander, said Communications Officer Sunho from his station. Shall I transmit on all Earth frequencies? Proceed, Ta-1 ordered. He watched as the ultimatum was sent toward the blue planet. For a moment, he wondered what these humans would be like. Not that it mattered much. They would either serve or perish like all the others. The message traveled across the void, reaching Earth in minutes. It was intercepted by multiple listening stations around the planet, and within an hour, the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath Mount Fuji was buzzing with activity. Major Hanbin stood rigid as technicians worked to translate and verify the alien message. At 46 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though many had doubted it would ever come. His weathered face showed no emotion as the translation appeared on the main screen. Alert the Security Council, he ordered a junior officer, Priority Alpha. Within 3 hours, the world's most powerful leaders had assembled in the underground war room. They sat around a circular table, faces illuminated by the blue glow of display screens showing the alien vessels. How many ships? Asked Defense Minister Wonshik. We've identified 8 vessels in the main group, Hanbin replied, bringing up thermal imagery on the main display. Based on their energy signatures, they're massive, each one several times larger than our biggest aircraft carriers. President Kim entered the room, and everyone stood. At 52, she had led the United Earth Alliance for just 7 months. This crisis would define her presidency and possibly humanity's future. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her eyes revealed a sharp intelligence that had taken her from a small fishing village to global leadership. What do we know about them? She asked without preamble. They call themselves the Valkyrie, Hanbin said. Our translators are still working on the language, but the message is clear enough. He played the translation on the main screen, and the room fell silent as the aliens' demands were laid bare. People of Earth, the translated message began. Your planet has been selected for resource acquisition by the Valkyrie Federation. You will surrender all mineral, biological, and water resources. Compliance will allow your species limited autonomy. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization. You have 72 hours to respond. Silence hung in the air as the implications sank in. The Chinese premier was the first to speak. Can we fight them? What are our options? Hanbin shared a meaningful look with President Kim before answering. Conventional weapons would be ineffective against their technology level, based on our readings. Then we must negotiate, said the European Union representative. Perhaps we can offer limited resources in exchange for. No, President Kim said firmly, cutting off the discussion. She leaned forward, her expression resolute. They've made a terrible miscalculation. The room quieted as all eyes turned to her. It's time, she said to Hanbin. Activate Phoenix Protocol. A ripple of surprise moved through the room. Most of the leaders present had been briefed on Phoenix only in theoretical terms. Few believed it actually existed. Madam President, the Russian president said carefully, "Phoenix is real." She nodded. "It has been operational for 15 years. Han Bin moved to a special console and placed his palm on a scanner. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a series of biometric authentication devices. President Kim joined him, placing her hand on a second scanner while looking into a retinal reader. "Phoenix Protocol Authentication," a computer voice announced. "Secondary authorization required." 3 other military leaders from different nations stepped forward, adding their authentication to the system. "Phoenix Protocol activated," the computer confirmed. "Awaiting executive command." Back on the Night Shadow, Taiwan received word that the humans were responding. He allowed himself a small smile. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. "Let's see how quickly they surrender." The face that appeared was not what he expected. Instead of fear, the human leader showed calm determination. "I am President Kim of the United Earth Alliance," she began. "We have received your demands." Taiwan waited for the inevitable plea for mercy or time. "We will not surrender our planet or our resources," she continued. "You have gravely underestimated humanity. We are not defenseless, and we are not afraid." Lieutenant June looked up from his station in surprise. "Commander, we're detecting energy signatures from Earth. They're activating something." Taiwan frowned. This wasn't following the usual pattern. "Your 72-hour deadline is rejected," President Kim said. "Instead, we offer you one chance to leave our solar system peacefully. You have 24 hours to depart. After that, we will defend ourselves with full force." The transmission ended, leaving Taiwan momentarily speechless. Then he laughed. "They think they can threaten us. Prepare a response. Tell them we'll begin the cleansing immediately as a demonstration of our power." But as he gave the order, warning signals began blaring across the command deck. "Commander," Lieutenant June called out, his voice tense. "Multiple energy signatures activating across Earth's orbit. They were hidden somehow. Our scans didn't detect them until now." Taiwan moved quickly to the tactical display. Impossible. All around the planet, previously invisible defense platforms were coming online. From Earth's surface, advanced missile systems were targeting his fleet with precision that shouldn't have been possible for a species at this development stage. "How did we miss this?" he demanded. "Full defensive protocols." As the Valkyrie fleet scrambled to respond, President Kim stood in the command center, watching as humanity revealed its hidden strength. The Phoenix Protocol, developed in secret for decades, was now humanity's shield against the stars. "Send the second message," she ordered Han Bin. "Let them understand exactly what they're facing." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Song Min entered final authorization codes as emergency lights bathed the command center in red. For 30 years, the Phoenix Protocol had been humanity's most closely guarded secret, a defense system built by a unified Earth following a classified first contact incident decades earlier. "All Phoenix platforms activating," announced Dr. Song Min. "Quantum shields at full capacity. AI defense matrix online." The underwater facility, known as Deep Haven, hummed with activity. Located 5 kilometers beneath the ocean surface, it had been constructed in total secrecy. Only a handful of people from each major nation knew of its existence. The command center was a marvel of human engineering. A perfect circle with workstations arranged like spokes of a wheel, all facing the central holographic display that currently showed the position of the Valkyrie ships. Dr. Song Min was 63 years old, with silver-streaked black hair and hands that moved across the controls with practiced confidence. She had been part of the Phoenix program since its beginning, one of the few who had survived the original contact that humanity had kept hidden from the public. "All systems report ready," called out her assistant, Dr. Nam. "Quantum linking stable across all platforms." Song Min nodded and touched the communication panel. Deep Haven to Global Command. Phoenix is awake. I repeat, Phoenix is awake. Around the world, seemingly ordinary satellites began to change. Communications arrays unfolded to reveal advanced weapon systems. Weather monitoring platforms shifted, revealing sensor arrays far beyond what humanity was thought to possess. In Earth's orbit, hundreds of stealth platforms, invisible until now, powered up their systems. On military bases across the planet, soldiers watched in amazement as hidden bunkers opened to reveal technology they never knew existed. Massive rail guns extended from mountain hideaways. Missile silos thought to be decommissioned decades ago opened to reveal entirely new weapon systems. And in the oceans, the true power of Phoenix emerged. Massive underwater platforms rose slightly from their hiding places on the seabed. Each was the size of a small city, equipped with energy projection systems reverse-engineered from technology not of this Earth. Defense grid at 100%, reported Systems Manager Da. His fingers danced across the holographic controls as thousands of status reports flowed into Deep Haven. All platforms report ready. Dr. Song Min took a deep breath. 30 years of preparation, of secrecy, of working in the shadows, all for this moment. Activate quantum shields. An invisible dome of energy began to form around the planet. It wasn't a solid barrier, but rather a complex web of quantum fields designed to absorb and redirect energy. The technology had come at great cost, developed from the wreckage of the ship that had crashed in the Arctic 3 decades ago. Above them, the Valkyrie attack fleet moved into position. Commander Taiwan had decided to make an example of Earth. No more waiting for their response. His 8 massive ships formed an attack pattern, weapons systems charging. Target their largest population centers, he ordered. Show them the price of defiance. Lieutenant Jun hesitated for just a moment before entering the targeting commands. Something about this didn't feel right. The human's confidence was unexpected, but orders were orders. Targeting complete, he announced. Weapons at full charge. Taiwan allowed himself a small smile. Fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced from the Valkyrie ships toward Earth. Each beam carried enough power to level a major city. The vessels had performed this task on a dozen worlds before. The overwhelming show of force usually ended resistance immediately. But something unexpected happened. As the energy beams hit Earth's atmosphere, they seemed to bend, distort, and then dissipate entirely, absorbed by an invisible shield that shouldn't have existed. What just happened? Taiwan demanded, rising from his command chair. Lieutenant Jun frantically checked his instruments. Unknown, Commander. The weapons appeared to hit some kind of energy field. Impossible. They don't have that technology. Fire again. All weapons. The Valkyrie ships unleashed their full arsenal, only to watch again as the devastating energy was harmlessly absorbed. In Deep Haven, Dr. Songmin watched the attack on the main display. Shield performance. Operating at 40% capacity, reported Dr. Nam with a note of pride in his voice. The quantum absorption is working perfectly. Energy stores are filling rapidly. Songmin nodded. They're giving us exactly what we need. Prepare countermeasures. Deep in space, Commander Taiwan was about to order a third volley when warning alarms blared across his bridge. Energy signatures detected, shouted the sensor officer. Multiple sources, all around the planet. Taiwan barely had time to process this information before 3 of his outer ships exploded simultaneously, struck by weapons that hadn't appeared on any scan. The blasts were precise, targeting propulsion and weapon systems while avoiding crew quarters. Impossible, Commander Taiwan whispered as he watched the destruction. His 3 most powerful ships reduced to drifting hulks in seconds. Commander, we're being targeted, Lieutenant Jun called out. I'm detecting energy buildup from multiple points on the planet's surface and in orbit. Taiwan stared at the view screen in disbelief. How could this primitive species possess such technology? Evasive maneuvers, full defensive screens. But it was too late. Precise energy beams lanced through space, striking the remaining Valkyrie ships with surgical accuracy. They didn't destroy the vessels completely, just disabled their primary weapons and propulsion systems. On Earth, in the main defense command center beneath Mount Fuji, Major Hanbin watched the engagement unfold with calm detachment. The holographic display showed the status of all Phoenix platforms and the damaged Valkyrie ships. First phase complete, reported a tactical officer. 5 enemy vessels disabled, 3 maintaining position. Hanbin nodded. Return fire. Defensive protocols only. This had been the plan all along. Demonstrate strength without unnecessary destruction. Humanity had learned from that first contact that there were powers in the galaxy that could not be defeated through aggression alone. Intelligence, preparation, and restraint would be their greatest weapons. In Deep Haven, Dr. Song-min monitored the battle with mixed emotions. The Phoenix Protocol was working perfectly, the result of 30 years of unified human effort, built in secret while nations pretended to squabble over petty differences in public. But she also felt a deep sadness. This day marked humanity's official entry into a larger, more dangerous universe. The Valkyrie are attempting to regroup, reported Dr. Nam. Their remaining ships are falling back to a defensive position. Dr. Song-min nodded. As expected. Prepare the second phase message. On the crippled Night Shadow, Commander Ta-1 struggled to comprehend what had happened. 5 of his ships were disabled, their crews alive, but their weapons and engines destroyed with precision that spoke of technology far beyond what Earth should possess. Status report, he demanded. Lieutenant June looked up from his damaged console, his face illuminated by emergency lighting. Main power offline. Weapons systems destroyed. Engines non-functional. Communications limited to short range only. How? Ta-1 whispered. How did they do this? As if in answer to his question, all remaining systems on the bridge suddenly activated, displaying the face of Major Hanbin. Valkyrie Command, the human said calmly. Your attack has failed. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are unharmed. This was a choice. We could have destroyed you completely, but that is not our way. Ta-1 stared at the screen, speechless for perhaps the first time in his military career. You have much to learn about humanity, Major Hanbin continued. We suggest you begin with this lesson. Never threaten a species you don't fully understand. The surviving Valkyrie ships retreated to a safe distance. Commander Ta-1 was preparing a report to the High Command when all communication systems across his fleet suddenly activated. A human woman appeared on every screen. I am President Kim of the United Earth Alliance. Your attack has been repelled with minimal effort on our part. This was not luck. We have studied your kind for decades. She paused, allowing the translation to catch up. We know the quantum resonance frequency of your ship shields. We know your homeworld coordinates, all 7 of them, including your hidden colony on what you call Nexus 9. Ta-1 felt his blood cool. Nexus 9 was a military installation known only to the highest levels of Valkyrie Command. We have no desire for war, President Kim continued. But should you attack again, we will not limit ourselves to defense. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, leaving Commander Ta-1 staring at a blank screen. The bridge of the Night Shadow was quiet except for the occasional spark from damaged systems. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the faces of his crew. They looked to him for explanation, for guidance, but for once, the veteran commander had none to give. How do they access our communications? Lieutenant June finally asked, breaking the silence. And how do they know about Nexus 9? Ta-1 didn't answer immediately. His mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Nexus 9 was the Valkyrie's most secret military research facility. Its location was known only to the High Command and a handful of fleet commanders like himself. Even mentioning its name on an unsecured channel was grounds for execution. Scan our systems, he finally ordered. Check for infiltration, data breaches, anything unusual. As his crew hurried to obey, Tai-1 moved to the tactical station. The display showed his crippled fleet, 5 ships with major systems damage, 3 including his own with limited functionality. What should have been an easy conquest had turned into the worst defeat in his 40 years of service. "Commander," called the communications officer, "High Command is requesting an update. They want to know why we haven't reported success yet." Tai-1 almost laughed. How could he explain this? The Valkyrie had conquered 67 worlds across 12 star systems. They had never encountered a species that could resist their initial attack, let alone one that could disable their ships with such precision. "Tell them," he began, then paused. "Tell them we've encountered unexpected resistance and are gathering data before proceeding." That would buy him time to think. He needed to understand what had happened before facing the High Command's wrath. On Earth, President Kim stepped away from the transmission terminal in the Mount Fuji Command Center. Her face showed no emotion, but inside, her heart pounded. The warning had been delivered. Now they would see if it worked. "Do you think they'll listen?" asked Major Hanbin, who stood nearby. President Kim considered the question. "They have to process what just happened. Their worldview has been shattered. They thought us primitive, easy prey. Now they know differently." Hanbin nodded, and mentioning Nexus 9 was necessary, the president finished. "They need to understand we know far more about them than they realized. Fear can be a powerful motivator for peace." She turned to a communications officer. "Connect me to Deep Haven." Within moments, Dr. Song-min's face appeared on the screen. The underwater facility was still on high alert, its systems monitoring the damaged Valkyrie fleet. "Dr. Song-min, what's the status of our defenses?" "All systems functioning at optimal levels, Madam President," Song-min replied. "The quantum shields absorbed enough energy from their attack to remain fully powered for 3 months. The AI defense matrix has calculated 17 potential counterattack scenarios and prepared responses for each. And our special insurance policy." Dr. Song-min's expression grew serious. "Probe 1 is in position near the Valkyrie homeworld. It remains undetected. If needed, we can activate it at any time." President Kim nodded. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Back on the Night Shadow, Commander Tai-1 received troubling news from his systems analysts. "Commander," reported the chief analyst, "we found something in our database. It appears our systems were accessed remotely before we even entered the solar system." "How is that possible?" Tai-1 demanded. "Unknown, sir, but the access signature is unlike anything I've seen before. It bypassed all our security protocols, as if they weren't even there." The implications were staggering. If the humans could access Valkyrie systems so easily, what else could they do? Could they already have infiltrated the High Command itself? Lieutenant June approached cautiously. "Commander, we've completed our analysis of their defense system. It's not like anything in our records." "Explain," Tai-1 said, his voice tight. "The quantum shields they used shouldn't be possible for a species at their development stage. And the weapons they fired at us, they were precisely tuned to our shield frequencies. That knowledge would require years of study. Years they shouldn't have had." Tai-1 finished. A terrible suspicion began to form in his mind. "Access the classified records. Look for any unusual incidents in this sector over the last 50 years. While they waited for the results, Tai-1 stared at the image of Earth on his view screen. Such a blue world, seemingly so vulnerable. How had they prepared so thoroughly? How had they known the Valkyrie were coming? "Sir," called the records officer a few minutes later, "I found something. 30 Earth years ago, a Valkyrie scout ship went missing in this sector. It was classified as lost in a stellar phenomenon. But what?" Tai-1 prompted. "But the final transmission contained unusual data. The ship reported detecting advanced energy signatures from the third planet before contact was lost." Tai-1 closed his eyes as understanding dawned. "They've had one of our ships. For 30 years, they've been studying our technology, our communications, our weaknesses." "Sir," Lieutenant Jun said hesitantly, "If that's true, then they may know far more than just Nexus 9. They could know our entire fleet deployment, our defense codes, maybe even." "Enough," Todd 1 cut him off. The situation was worse than he had imagined. If the humans had successfully reverse-engineered Valkyrie technology from a scout ship, they were far more resourceful than any species the Valkyrie had encountered before. A decision had to be made. The standard Valkyrie protocol would be to call for reinforcements, to bring overwhelming force against this unexpected resistance. But something told Tawan that would be a mistake. "Prepare a message to High Command," he ordered. "Mark it as highest priority, encrypted channel." As his communications officer prepared the transmission, Tawan considered his words carefully. His career, perhaps even his life, would depend on how he explained this disaster. "High Command," he began when the channel was ready. "We have encountered a situation requiring immediate diplomatic intervention. The species on the third planet, humans, possess technology far beyond our initial assessment. They have demonstrated the ability to neutralize our weapons and disable our ships with precision." He paused, then added the most difficult part. "They have knowledge of our secure locations, including Nexus 9. Evidence suggests they recovered and studied one of our scout ships lost in this sector 30 years ago. I recommend immediate cessation of hostile actions and establishment of diplomatic contact." After sending the message, Tawan returned to the bridge's observation window and looked out at Earth. In all his years of conquest, he had never recommended diplomacy instead of force. But then, he had never encountered a species like humans before. On Earth, President Kim received word that the Valkyrie fleet was holding position, neither advancing nor retreating. "They're considering their options," Major Hanbin observed. "Yes," the president agreed, "and wondering how much we really know." She turned to her advisors. "The next few hours will determine whether we have peace or war. Maintain defense readiness, but make no aggressive moves." As both sides waited in the darkness of space, humanity's future hung in the balance, protected not by luck, but by 30 years of careful preparation for this very day. The Valkyrie High Command dismissed Earth's warning as a bluff. They dispatched their third battle group, 50 warships under Admiral Do Hyun, undefeated in 17 planetary conquests. "We will crush this insolence," he announced as his fleet prepared to jump. Admiral Do Hyun stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the largest battleship in the Valkyrie fleet. At 7 kilometers long, it dwarfed even Commander Tawan's vessels. Do Hyun was tall even for a Valkyrie, with a proudly scared face that told the story of battles won across multiple star systems. "Commander Tawan has grown weak," he told his officers as they prepared for hyperspace jump, "to be defeated by primitives. Unthinkable." His report about their advanced technology must be an attempt to cover his own failure. The High Command had shared the same opinion. Though Tawan's report contained disturbing details, particularly the mention of Nexus 9, they believed the humans were bluffing. No developing world could possibly defeat a Valkyrie attack force. The evidence suggested Tawan had simply made a tactical error. "Admiral," reported his second-in-command, "all 50 ships report ready. Jump coordinates locked on Earth's solar system." Do Hyun nodded. "Begin jump sequence. We will arrive with full battle formation. No warnings, no demands. This time we strike first and completely." The massive fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only a brief flash of light. On Earth, sensors detected the energy signature of multiple hyperspace jumps forming at the edge of the solar system. Intelligence analysts worked quickly to identify the incoming threat. Major Hanbin received the intelligence with resignation. He had hoped the initial defense would convince the Valkyrie to reconsider, but it seemed they required a stronger message. "They're sending their elite force," he informed President Kim during an emergency briefing. "The third battle group under Admiral Do Hyun. 50 warships, including 3 planet killers." President Kim's expression remained calm, but her eyes revealed her concern. Is Phoenix ready for this level of assault? We could engage them directly, Hanbin said, but casualties would be high on both sides. He paused. There is another option. We could deploy the demonstration package. All eyes in the room turned to Dr. Songmin, who had joined the meeting via secure link from Deep Haven. The blacklight device is ready, she confirmed. We've only tested it at short range, but the principles are sound. It should work as designed. President Kim considered their options. The blacklight device represented the most advanced technology humans had developed from studying the crashed Valkyrie ship. It was meant to be their final deterrent, save for the gravest threat. If we use it now, we reveal our greatest advantage, she said thoughtfully. If we don't, Han Bin countered, we risk losing thousands of lives in a direct engagement. After a moment of silence, the president nodded. Prepare the demonstration package. But I want minimal crew, volunteers only. 3 hours later, a small Earth vessel named Defiant waited alone in space. It was roughly the size of a submarine, crewed by just 5 people, all scientists who had helped develop the blacklight device. Captain Min piloted the craft himself, positioning it precisely at the calculated arrival point of the Valkyrie fleet. Defiant to control, he reported. We're in position. Blacklight is powered and ready. In the command center, Major Han Bin acknowledged the message. Understood, Defiant. Hold position. Valkyrie fleet will arrive in approximately 3 minutes. On the Defiant, the small crew made final preparations. The blacklight device occupied most of the ship's cargo area. A sphere of black metal surrounded by a complex array of quantum field generators. It didn't look impressive, but it represented the culmination of 30 years of reverse engineering Valkyrie technology. Energy levels stable, reported Dr. Jin, the lead scientist. Quantum fields aligned. We're ready, Captain. Captain Min nodded. His heart was pounding, but his hands remained steady on the controls. They were about to face a fleet that had destroyed entire civilizations, armed with a device that had never been tested at full scale. Sensor alert. Call his navigation officer. Multiple hyperspace signatures forming. They're coming. Space itself seemed to bend as the Valkyrie fleet emerged from hyperspace. Ship after massive ship appeared, forming a battle formation that spread across thousands of kilometers. At the center was the Eternal Glory, Admiral Du Hyun's flagship, flanked by planet killer vessels capable of reducing Earth's surface to molten slag. Against this armada, the Defiant looked like little more than a toy. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Admiral Du Hyun stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. This can't be right, he said. Scan again. Confirmed, Admiral, replied Lieutenant Jiho. Just one Earth vessel present. Small, minimal weapons. No sign of the defense system, Commander Tawan reported. Do Hyun laughed. They send one ship. Perhaps they wish to surrender properly. The bridge crew joined in his laughter. After the tension of preparing for a difficult battle, the sight of a single, tiny enemy vessel was almost comical. Open a channel, the Admiral ordered. Let's hear their pleas before we begin the attack. But before communications could be established, Lieutenant Jiho called out in alarm. Sir, I'm detecting energy buildup from the Earth ship, but it's not weapons. It's... His words were cut short as a pulse of blue-white energy expanded from the small craft. It spread outward at impossible speed, washing over the Valkyrie fleet like a silent wave. As it touched each ship, systems went dark. Engines shut down. Weapons powered off. Even life support flickered momentarily before emergency backups engage. Ship after ship went dark, their systems completely neutralized. In less than 30 seconds, all 50 Valkyrie warships, the pride of their empire, were floating helplessly in space. On the Eternal Glory, emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow across the bridge. Admiral Du Hyun stared in shock at dead control panels and silent systems. What happened? He demanded. Status report. Officers scrambled to check backup systems, but found little working equipment to report on. All main systems disabled, Admiral, reported the chief engineer via handheld communicator. Engines, weapons, shields, communications, all offline. Only basic life support and emergency systems still functioning. Do-hyun couldn't comprehend what had happened. No weapon he knew of could shut down an entire fleet without causing physical damage. It defied everything he understood about warfare. Then, unexpectedly, the emergency communication system activated on every ship in the fleet. A human voice spoke clearly in perfect Valkyrie language. This was mercy. We chose not to destroy you. Return home with this knowledge. The message repeated once, then fell silent, leaving the stunned crews to contemplate their situation. On the Defiant, Captain Min and his crew observed the results with a mixture of relief and awe. The blacklight device had worked even better than expected, completely neutralizing the Valkyrie fleet without harming any crew members. Blacklight energy discharge complete, reported Dr. Jin. All Valkyrie vessels affected as predicted. Their main power systems are locked in a quantum stasis field. The effect will last approximately 72 hours, enough time for them to drift out of the solar system using emergency thrusters. Captain Min opened a channel to Earth. Defiant to control. Demonstration package successfully deployed. All Valkyrie vessels neutralized. In the command center, cheers erupted at the news. The gamble had paid off. Earth had demonstrated power beyond anything the Valkyrie had encountered before, and done so without taking a single life. Major Hanbin allowed himself a small smile before restoring order. Well done, Defiant. Return to base. We'll monitor the Valkyrie fleet's retreat. President Kim watched the celebration with quiet satisfaction. Send a message to Commander Taiwan's ship, she instructed. Inform him that his fleet is welcome to assist the 3rd Battle Group in returning home. Also let him know that we remain open to peaceful diplomatic relations, should the Valkyrie wish to establish them. As the powerless Valkyrie ships drifted in space, Admiral Do-hyun stared out at the stars, his worldview shattered. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that could defeat an entire battle group without firing a single destructive shot. They could have destroyed us, he said quietly to his second-in-command. Why didn't they? The question hung in the air, unanswered but profound. For the first time in generations, the Valkyrie would return home not as conquerors, but as witnesses to a power greater than their own, a power tempered with mercy. 3 months later, President Kim stood in the newly constructed Harmony Hall as Valkyrie representatives entered. Their High Chancellor Sung-ho approached with formal dignity. We have studied your species more carefully, he said. You had observers among the stars for decades without our knowledge. You developed defenses beyond our understanding. Yet you never launched a single offensive action against our territories, despite having the capability. President Kim nodded. Humanity learned long ago that true strength lies in restraint. We prepare for war precisely so we never have to wage it. The treaty was simple: mutual respect, shared knowledge, and peace. Harmony Hall gleamed in the morning sunlight. Its walls of glass and steel formed a perfect circle, with no head or foot to the central table, a deliberate design meant to symbolize equality between all who gathered there. The building had been constructed in just 10 weeks on an artificial island in the Pacific Ocean, midway between Asia and North America. President Kim wore a simple white suit as she waited for the Valkyrie delegation. Around her stood representatives from all Earth nations, united as they had secretly been for decades. The main doors slid open. 6 Valkyrie entered, led by High Chancellor Sung-ho. They were taller than humans, with skin that shifted subtly in color depending on the light. The Chancellor wore formal robes of deep blue, decorated with symbols of his rank and house. Major Hanbin stood near President Kim, watching the Valkyrie closely. His hand rested near his sidearm, a precaution, though he doubted it would be needed. The last 3 months had been tense but productive. After the demonstration of the blacklight device, the Valkyrie High Command had withdrawn all forces from the solar system and opened communication channels. Welcome to Earth, President Kim said as the Valkyrie reached the table. Chancellor Sung-ho bowed slightly. "We thank you for this invitation, President Kim." His voice was deep, the words carefully pronounced in practiced English. They seated themselves around the table. For a moment, silence filled the hall as humans and Valkyrie studied each other openly for the first time. "Before we begin formal treaty discussions," Sung-ho said, "my people wish to understand something." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "We have studied your species more carefully since our first meeting. You had observers among the stars for decades without our knowledge. You developed defenses beyond our understanding. Yet you never launched a single offensive action against our territories, despite having the capability." It wasn't a question exactly, but the confusion in his voice was clear. President Kim smiled slightly. 30 years ago, one of your scout ships crashed in our Arctic region. There were no survivors, but we recovered your technology. From it, we learned much about the Valkyrie and about the wider galaxy." Sung-ho nodded. The crash had been confirmed by their own records once they knew where to look. "We discovered your conquest of other worlds," the president continued. "We realized that eventually you would find Earth. So we prepared. Every nation contributed resources in secret while maintaining the appearance of division and conflict to any watching eyes." "But why not strike first?" asked one of the Valkyrie delegates. "You clearly had the capability to attack our worlds. You knew our locations, our weaknesses." President Kim's expression grew serious. "Humanity learned long ago that true strength lies in restraint. We prepare for war precisely so we never have to wage it." She gestured to the room around them. "Throughout our history, we have fought countless conflicts among ourselves. We have nearly destroyed our own civilization more than once. From this, we learned an important truth. Those who seek power through conquest ultimately fail." Sung-ho considered her words. "Yet the Valkyrie Empire has expanded for generations through conquest. And how many true allies do you have among the stars?" President Kim asked. "How many worlds give freely rather than from fear?" The Chancellor had no answer for this. It was true. The Valkyrie ruled through power, not cooperation. Dr. Song-min, now serving as Earth's chief scientific advisor, spoke next. "When we studied your ship, we could have focused only on weapons. Instead, we sought to understand your culture, your language, your way of thinking. We developed defenses, yes, but we also prepared for peace." Over the next hours, the two species began to draft a treaty. It was remarkably simple in its core principles: mutual respect, shared knowledge, and peace. The details would take weeks to finalize, but the foundation was laid in that first meeting. As the formal session ended, Chancellor Sung-ho approached President Kim privately. "There is something I must know," he said quietly. "The device your ship used against our fleet, could it have been weaponized? Could you have destroyed us rather than simply disabled our systems?" President Kim met his gaze steadily. "Yes." "Then why didn't you? After we threatened your world, why show mercy?" "Because," she said, "we wanted to give you the chance to be better, just as we have tried to be better than our own violent past." The Chancellor was silent for a long moment. "My people have much to learn from yours, it seems." 6 months later, the first human delegation visited the Valkyrie homeworld. Major Hanbin, now an ambassador, stood before the Valkyrie High Council and formally established the new alliance. The Phoenix Protocol remained active, but its purpose had shifted from defense to exploration and protection of younger species. 5 years passed. Trade routes opened between Earth and Valkyrie worlds. Cultural exchanges flourished. The Valkyrie began the slow process of reforming their empire, offering genuine alliance to worlds they had once conquered. In a classroom on the Valkyrie homeworld, young students gathered around their teacher as she showed them images of Earth. "They are the species who could have destroyed us," she explained, "but instead taught us that the greatest power is the one you choose not to use." One student raised his hand. "Is it true they knew about us long before we discovered them?" "Yes," the teacher confirmed. "While we searched the galaxy for worlds to conquer, They were quietly watching, learning, preparing, not to attack, but to defend. They sent small, undetectable probes to many worlds, including our own. These observers reported back everything about our civilization. Weren't they afraid of us? Asked another student. They were cautious, but not ruled by fear, the teacher explained. They understood something that we have forgotten, that cooperation brings greater strength than conquest. Throughout the galaxy, the stories spread of the planet that had issued a single warning, and how that warning had transformed the stars. Other species who had lived in fear of the Valkyrie now emerged, seeking contact with the humans who had changed the balance of power with a demonstration of restraint. On Earth, in the underwater facility of Deep Haven, Dr. Songmin stood before a glass wall that looked out into the deep ocean. Behind her, technicians were disassembling parts of the Phoenix system, not destroying it, but repurposing it for the new era of exploration. Major Hanbin, recently returned from his latest diplomatic mission, joined her at the window. The Valkyrie have dismantled the last of their planet-killer weapons, he reported, and 3 more former conquest worlds have petitioned to join the alliance as equal partners. Dr. Songmin smiled. When we found that crashed ship 30 years ago, I never imagined it would lead to this. No, Hanbin agreed. We prepared for the worst but achieved something better. He looked out at the ocean depths. President Kim is addressing the United Nations today about expanding our deep space program. Now that we're not spending resources on defense, we can focus on exploration. Above them, on the surface of a peaceful Earth, humanity looked to the stars not with fear, but with hope. The warning that had once protected them had become an invitation to join in creating something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The end.